Quietness. Absolute silence. Retreat. Retreat in fear. The elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance, who were standing on the square right now, could only be silent and retreat. They thought they were in control of everything, but they suddenly felt like sheep that were provoking a real grown dragon when the king of Chambord unexpectedly showcased his strength. It was ridiculous. Their numbers advantage was rendered completely useless in front of such a huge power gap. Even if they charged at the king of Chambord together, they couldn't do any harm to him. On the contrary, they would be wiped out instead. Melberg and his two subordinates were the best examples. Right now, Prince Simon of Madat Arcadi and Prince Sark of Maze were both terrified. They were shaking as their faces paled. After thinking back to the words they said when they were provoking Chambord, they realized that they even called the king of Chambord directly by name. It was like kissing the Grim Reaper and playing with fire. Faye glanced around, and the people whom he looked at all lowered their heads. The elites of Dragon Hunt Alliance backed off continuously until their backs were against the seating area in the south. Right now, they started to envy the guests who were still sitting down, and they regretted jumping out and expressing their hostility. It would be great if I am still sitting on my seat right now, they fantasized. Bark, bark, bark. Second Prince Dominguez of Zenit lost his composure for the first time, and he accidentally dropped his warm liquor cup into his arms, making Oka, the little disabled dog, bark loudly. In this strange silence, Oka's barking was ear-piercing and terrifying. This is a great land, and our homes are open to all friends. But if wolves come by, they will be received by spears and arrows. The singing of Chambordians was still resonating in the guests' ears, and they finally understood how accurately the song depicted the attitude of Chambord. It looks like the so-called Dragon Hunt Alliance is just a big joke. Faye shook his head and said to himself, even though the enemies who were facing him were elites, their courage and will were both much weaker compared with the bylaw enforcement officers and Saint Seiya's. It looked like the comfortable and luxurious living conditions corrupted them, and their monotonous academy-style training made them mentally weak. Even though the king of Chambord's words were full of mockery, none of the elites dared to refute them. In fact, none of them even dared to look up and express their anger and displeasure. The drastic difference in strength started to demolish the Dragon Hunt Alliance, slowly but surely. Some of them were even starting to consider surrendering right now so that they could save their lives. However, at this moment, clap, 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 clap. Suddenly, a series of crisp claps sounded abruptly, and it was extremely casual and ear-piercing. Everyone was surprised, and they looked in the direction of the noise. A mid-aged man in white stood up from the seating area to the west. He wasn't tall and muscular, but there was a mocking smile on his ordinary face. As he clapped his hands, he slowly strode to the center of the square from where he was, and he laughed. Great! This is great! King Alexander of Chambord, you sure didn't disappoint me. Peak full moon. 1 foot into Sunseal. You are so young, yet you have achieved this level of strength. You are a genius for sure. Great. Little king, you should be honored. Your strength is worthy enough of my appearance. Such arrogant words. Everyone was shocked by what they heard. There were only 2 possible reasons to explain this mid-aged man's behavior. Either he was an idiot, or he was indeed a great master. The answer would be revealed soon. A vast amount of energy started to appear on this man's body, and fresh green wood elemental warrior energy flames shone brightly on him. As this energy full of life dispersed into the area, all the plants started growing. Soon, the GRSES that were seated below the square grew out of the slits between tiles, and the square was slowly turning into a GRS land. It was very lively under the empowerment of wood elemental energy. The image of a moon slowly appeared behind this person's head, and it was almost turning into a sun. This was a sign that this person was at peak full moon and already set 1 foot into Sunseal. This ordinary-looking mid-aged man who was wearing a white robe was actually a powerful master who was very close to achieving Sunseal. I'm Brando, the captain of Royal Guards of the Leon Empire. Alexander just commit suicide. This way, I don't need to kill you, and you can have a dignified death. I can promise you that once you die, the people of Chambord won't be killed as long as they don't rebel. As this mid-aged man in white said that, he walked toward the high platform where Faye was standing on. Every time he took a step forward, a swaying vine would grow out of the ground and keep him up, making it look like he was walking in air. It was a magnificent sight. Faye's lips twitched, but he held himself back and did cuss out the word, dumbass. The king thought he was already a big show-off, but he now met a guy who was even better at it. Did someone bang his head against a door? As soon as he opens his mouth, he asks others to commit suicide. Are all the masters from the Leon Empire this way? This man in white is acting like a dumbass, and so was that #1 royal mage of the Leon Empire, Domenech. Man, I can't tell which one of them is stupider, Brando or Domenech. Seeing no reaction from Faye, white-robed Brando frowned and shouted, "What? Why aren't you committing suicide? Do you really think that you can escape from me?" As he said that, he smiled proudly and flipped his hand. Then, a silver broadsword slowly appeared in his palm while spinning, and a terrifying sensation came along with it. With this sword in hand, Brando's power instantly increased more than 7 to 8 times. Level 8 combat weapon. This sword was a level 8 combat weapon. No wonder this white-robed Brando was so arrogant, since he had such a high-level combat weapon, and his strength was extremely close to Sun-CLA.S.S. He was comparable to a newly advanced Sun-CLA.S.S. lord. Therefore, he was confident that he could suppress the king of Chambord easily. Alright. Since you still won't surrender, I will let you experience desperation. Seeing that Faye was still not showing fear on his face, Brando was infuriated. As a cold smile appeared on his face, he grabbed onto his level 8 combat weapon, and his power skyrocketed again. He was about to attack. Dumbass! Faye couldn't help it and cuss it in his mind. As he was about to slap this fly dead, Elena, who had been silent beside Faye, suddenly pulled Faye's sleeve and said with a frown, "Alexander, I don't like this person. Can I kill him?" Even though Elena wasn't loud, everyone in the area heard her clearly. As a result, they were all stunned. They gasped in unison and couldn't believe their ears. It looks like not only is the king of Chambord powerful and imposing, but this beautiful queen of his is also haughty and dominating, people thought. Some rumors said that this queen of Chambord named Elena is a skillful archer, but that is it. There isn't any information about her having the power to rival with a master who already set one foot into Sun-CLA.S.S. From the sound of her tone, it seems like this beautiful woman thinks that such a powerful master like this Brando with a level 8 combat weapon is a pig in a slaughterhouse. All the guests thought that this queen of Chambord didn't know any better and was acting pettish in front of the king of Chambord. But the king of Chambord actually thought about it for a while in all seriousness and said, "All right, but be quick and don't waste any time." Everyone felt like puking up blood after hearing that. Is the king of Chambord's brain also not working? Why is he playing along with his woman who doesn't know any better? People thought. Ha ha ha. Arrogance. I can turn you 3 into ghosts and undead creatures. You can go and love each other in HELL. Brando was enraged when he heard what Faye and Elena said. He was belittled, and that was a huge disgrace in his eyes. With his hand on the level 8 combat weapon, he unleashed all his power. The mighty energy surges were so bright that people had a hard time opening their eyes, and all the people who were below Moonsel's, except for the Chambordians who were protected by array formations, were forced down onto the ground. They couldn't fight against it at all. Right before their eyes were forced closed by the bright light, they vaguely saw Elena, who was in her red dress, standing on the high platform calmly, completely not affected by this. As she lightly closed her hands, a simple yet ancient-looking battle bow appeared. Bang! The bowstring lightly vibrated. Without any preparations or even aiming, she shot out 3 arrows almost at the same time. As soon as the 3 arrows were shot out, many people felt like laughing. Queen of Chambord, how come you are so casual? Are you trying to shoot a bird? They thought. You are facing a peak full moon elite who is very close to advancing into Sun-CLA.S.S. and he has a level 8 combat weapon. What is going on? Your casual attack is ridiculous. It is like trying to slap a huge dragon in the sky using a spatula. Even white-robed Brando felt like laughing. His wood elemental warrior energy was being used to the peak, and loud booming and rumbling noises sounded from within his body like the sound of a fast-current river. His entire body was enveloped by the fresh green warrior energy flames, no longer visible to others, and his silver level 8 combat weapon shone brightly as he struck down with it. Die! Brando shouted angrily as he attacked without mercy. In his mind, this was a killing move. There was no way that his opponents could dodge or defend against it. However, just as he laughed confidently and struck down with his sword, he suddenly felt like a terrifying beast was targeting him. An ominous sensation enveloped him abruptly without any signs, and it shocked him. Ever since he became a peak full moon elite and got so close to Xianxia, he had never sensed this chilling and scary feeling. All the hair on his body stood up. What is going on? Brando's face changed color. Before he could react, both his throat and his chest felt streaks of cold energies. In the next moment, all his power rushed out of his body like water in a flood, and unprecedented tiredness overtook him. He couldn't even stand still in the air, and his body swayed on a vine before falling. He felt like the level 8 combat weapon in his hand was getting heavier and heavier, and he almost couldn't grasp it. The bright, fresh green warrior energy flames instantly evaporated like vapor, immediately disappearing from the area. Next, the newly grown GRA-status, as well as the thick vines, withered quickly at a visible speed. Then, they dried up in an instant before getting blown into tiny yellow dust particles and disappearing into the air. The forest-like square soon turned back to its original appearance, and the blood stains, as well as the corpses of the masters, reappeared. You! Brando instantly fell to the ground, and his body shivered and staggered, unable to stand still. This master of the Leon Empire no longer looked dashing and cool after he fell from those thick green vines. He slowly lowered his head and realized that there were now 3 small holes on his body. There was a small hole in his throat and 2 other holes on his chest where his nipples were. It was clear that the arrows pierced his body, and mystic energies were left in his body. Currently, ice continued to form around his wounds and built thick blue ice walls. All his blood was being frozen inside his body. Now, Brando finally realized something. This beautiful queen beside the king of Chambord is actually a mighty master. 3 arrows from her easily defeated me when I have my level 8 combat weapon. I didn't even know when my body was pierced through. I overestimated myself, and I couldn't blame this on anyone else, he thought. Almost in an instant, the icy energy quickly spread through his entire body and turned him into a vivid ice sculpture. 3 icy arrows took away the life of a peak full moon elite who was almost a Xianxia lord. This shocking change dumbfounded everyone on the square. Queen Elena actually has this kind of power? King Alexander. Where did he find such a beautiful yet mighty queen? This beauty easily killed a master who already set 1 foot into Xianxia. This is the plot of a story that could only come out of the mouth of the most exaggerating storyteller. People thought. I don't like this person. Can I kill him? What Elena said was still resonating in people's ears. People thought she was being pettish, but now they realized what she meant and the consequences of being disliked by her. Many young men who were energetic and liked to fantasize were terrified. After thinking about how they stared at the perfect figure of this beautiful queen, as well as how they looked at her, as if she was an ignorant woman when she made that comment, after thinking back to how improper they acted, they all lowered their heads and were afraid of being disliked by this mighty queen. No one was able to bear the consequences of being disliked by the Valkyrie. Faye was the only person in the area who wasn't surprised by this outcome. Elena's strength was already at Nightmare Mode level 98. And she was only 1 step away from entering HELL mode in Diablo World. Therefore, she had also stepped 1 foot into Suncla.s in real words terms. Regarding weapons, Elena used Mavina-S Caster, Grand Matron Bow, which was a component of a top-tier item set in Diablo World. Compared with the level 8 combat weapon Brando had, it was much more powerful. Also, even though it looked like Elena shot out 3 arrows casually as if she was joking, she used her most powerful strike. She was able to comprehend Ancient Medoc's ultimate skill, throw axes, and merge it into her archery skills. With all these factors, as well as Brando being careless, combined, the fact that Elena killed Brando with 3 arrows was very reasonable. Faye lightly waved his hand, and a dash of silver light flew up from the square and landed in his hand. It was that level 8 combat weapon. This scene woke up all those masters. As soon as they saw Faye doing that, they were mad at themselves for being stunned by what happened. They forgot to fight for this high-leveled combat weapon, and the King of Chambord was able to use this opportunity to seize it. On the second thought, since there were so many masters in the area, it would be hard to fight for it. In addition, it was a treasure that technically belonged to the Leon Empire. Except for the King of Chambord, who else dared to take it so dominantly? Faye carefully inspected this sword that looked majestic and ennobly. As he lightly knocked it with his finger, the crisp ringing noise resonated in the sky. This was a thick broadsword that was symmetrical. There were 4 blood grooves on each side of the sword, and the blades were sharp. The handle and the guard of the sword looked simple yet fearless, giving people a firm sensation. For people who were powerful enough, it could be used by a single hand. However, even though it was a rare high-level combat weapon, it was a bit inferior to the level 8 combat weapon, Black Lightning, which was being used by Lampard right now. As he nodded in satisfaction, Faye placed 2 fingers onto the sword and dispersed the powerful energy inside, turning this sword into an item that no longer had a spiritual connection with anyone. After that, he slowly placed it into his storage space. This scene made a lot of people swallow their saliva. Faye easily acquired a level 8 combat weapon. It was the dream of numerous warriors. However, when the King of Chambord glanced around again, it forced many people to wake up from their greedy thoughts. Soon, all the masters in the Dragon Hunt Alliance realized the situation that they were in. Since Chambord now had King Alexander and Queen Elena here, they had the situation under complete control. If they want, they could instantly kill all the monetization elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance. If there weren't anything else that was going to happen, then Chambord would be the one who laughed until the end. However, who knew that the King of Chambord suddenly looked in the direction of the seating area of the Holy Church. While standing on the high platform, Faye locked his eyes onto the representatives there. After sensing Faye's stare, Priest Zola and Holy Knight Luciano, who were extremely nervous and afraid, quickly got off their chairs and kneeled onto the floor. They were shaking so violently that they couldn't even say a complete sentence. Faye shook his head and ignored these 2 people. He was staring at the white-haired elderly priest who was sitting a bit behind them, and this old priest was very calm and relaxed. Suddenly, a playful smile appeared on Faye's face, and he said something that no one expected. "It is already at this point. Mr. Xianxia, aren't you going to reveal yourself?" As soon as Faye said that, this white-haired elderly priest suddenly opened his eyes wide and locked them onto Faye. His stare was as vicious as a man-eating beast, and he no longer looked calm and collected. The temperature in the area dropped by several degrees, and all guests felt like they couldn't breathe properly. After a while, this elder finally calmed down again. He suddenly opened his mouth and said, "King of Chambord, I sure have underestimated you. You knew my ident.I.tie from the beginning. Mr. Xianxia, you are the bishop of one of the 5 most powerful shrines in the Northern Regional Church, the Red Sand Shrine. Since you suddenly showed up in my kingdom, how could I ignore you? I don't dare to do such a thing. I had to prepare well and treat you nicely." Faye's voice sounded clearly in everyone's ears. Suddenly, everyone looked at this white-haired, elderly priest differently, and they couldn't hide away their shocked expressions. Many people paid attention to the guests of the Holy Church. People like Priest Zola and Holy Knight Luciano were directly ignored, and this white-haired elder, who had a black stick in his hand and didn't have any warrior energy or magic energy fluctuations, was also deemed a weak person by the masters. The only people who caught their attention were the 5 holy knights who were sitting behind them. Their auras were much more powerful, and it was clear that they were mighty masters. However, no one expected that this white-haired elder, whom many people thought was weak and useless, was the bishop of the Red Sand Shrine. His Identity was far more superior compared with the emperors of Level 1 and Level 2 empires. The Moonsiala's elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance were all pleasantly surprised. After seeing the burned-like short stick in Xianxia's hands and recalling what happened yesterday in that secret room, they finally understood something and calmed down their hearts that were stirred up by the power Chambord showcased so far. Since you know my identity, I'm sure you also know why I'm here, right? After being identified, Xianxia's temperament changed drastically. He no longer looked like an old and ordinary priest but a majestic and pressing overlord. This aura of something that was formed after Xianxia became the bishop of the Red Sand Shrine for a long time. It wasn't pretentious at all compared with Brando, who tried to act. In the face of this powerful aura, the invincible image that Fei created with his power instantly melted like an ice block on a hot summer day as soon as Xianxia got to the middle of the square. Behind Bishop Xianxia of the Red Sand Shrine, the 5 holy knights who were at the Moonsiala's realm carefully surrounded him. One of them was burly and had a red face. He was that mysterious master who sneak-attacked Lampard during Nature's Challenge, and his name was Deceptive. These 5 holy knights looked hostile, and their expressions were arrogant. Not only did they look down at Fei and the Chambordians, but they also looked at the other masters in the Dragon Hunt Alliance with disdain. It was clear that they weren't satisfied with their performances so far. Mr. Xianxia, your status is really supreme. How could I, the king of a little kingdom, know what your intention is? Why don't you say it out loud and let me hear it? Fei said as he got down from the high platform. Then, he lightly waved his hand, and the warriors of Chambord moved to 2 sides, making a path for their king. Fei slowly walked through that path and got in front of Bishop Xianxia of the Red Sand Shrine. Everyone was focusing on these 2 gurus. After hearing what Fei said, Bishop Xianxia nodded with a strange smile on his face. Oh, so there are things that even King Alexander, your majesty, don't know about. Okay, let me be honest with you. I'm here for Queen Angela. According to the report of a priest from the Xianxia shrine named Belisi, Queen Angela has the purest soul in the world, and she has the potential of communicating with the Gods. She is the perfect candidate for being the saintess of the Holy Church. Bishop Platini of the Northern Regional Church had ordered me to come here and meet up with Queen Angela. I'm going to take Her Highness back to the headquarters of the North Regional Church and let her be canonized by Bishop Platini so that she can become the supreme saintess of the Northern Regional Church, he said. As soon as he said that, a series of gasps sounded on the square. Everyone looked at that beautiful girl who was standing on the high platform, and her fancy long white dress fluttered in the wind. After looking at her again, people felt like Queen Angela had a uniquely pure and holy aura around her. She looked like a goddess. Then all the guests turned around and looked at Fei with pity. Even though Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand worded it politely, the underlying meaning was cruel and clear. He was asking the king of Chambord to give up his beautiful queen and hand her over to the Holy Church. To the aggressive and invincible king of Chambord, this was no different to a hard slap on the face. On his wedding night, he had to hand over one of his beloved queens. If this got out, the destruction of his fame would be irreparable. Now, some people even started to sympathize with the king of Chambord. What could he really do to the mammoth on the continent, Holy Church? Even the emperors of those powerful empires had to get along with the Holy Church carefully. Even though the Chambord kingdom had surprising strength, it was still far from having the ability to arm wrestle with the Holy Church. Now, everyone was focused back on the king of Chambord. Guests like Prince Simon of the Ardadastadi Empire and Prince Sark of the Maze Empire, who feared Fei and also hated him, were gloating at this moment. They couldn't wait for the king of Chambord to show the painful and defeated expression. Even though Bishop Xianxia was rude and upfront, the king of Chambord didn't get angry like how everyone expected. In fact, his face didn't even pale. After hearing what Xianxia said, he lightly stretched his back and looked at Xianxia with a strange smile as well. Priest Belisi? Oh, I remember this name, and I do remember him saying such a thing in front of me. Unfortunately, I heard that he died not too long after. It is rumored that he died tragically, and his heart was even destroyed by an evil undead mage. Oh, on that note, did the Holy Church successfully capture this evil undead mage? They asked. Everyone was stunned by what the King of Chambord said, and they didn't know why he said that. However, only Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand's face changed color. Light dashed out of his old yet sharp eyes, and he stared at Faye viciously as if he wanted to eat up this king. Out of everyone here, only he knew how Belisi died. He heard that Belisi was killed while he was on a mission, and the people who died in that mission were more than just Belisi. Therefore, he understood that sharp and cold murderous intent in Faye's words. Are you threatening me? Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand's pupil lightly contracted. Since Faye was threatening him and overlooking his high status, Xianxia got defensive and looked like a poisonous snake that was about to attack. Mr. Xianxia, your reaction is just, I don't understand what you mean. Of course, Faye wouldn't admit to anything publicly. Therefore, he shrugged, opened his palms and showed a strange smile. Humph, it is better that you don't. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand shook his head and didn't want to waste too much time on the issue with Belisi. The execution department of the Holy Church was already on this issue, and he was confident that the real killer couldn't get away. After a short pause, he said in all seriousness, All right, Alexander, I have already been generous to you. I didn't do anything before and allowed you and Angela to get on the high platform. You two are now already husband and wife in name. Treat it as my gift for your wedding. This should be enough for you, and I don't want to give any more explanation. Prepare a magic carriage and let Saintess Angela get changed into the robe of the Holy Church before leaving here with me. Ha 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 ha. Damen, you sure are a nice person. Should I thank you for your generosity? Still with that strange smile on his face, Faye zapped his mouth and mocked with cold glares. However, I'm afraid that I couldn't agree with Mr. Xianxia's request. In addition, even if Bishop Platini came here today, he couldn't take Angela away from Chambord City. What? Xianxia didn't react in time, and he was slightly stunned. In the next moment, he understood what Faye meant, and his calm expression changed. Just like other people on the square, he couldn't hide his shock on his face. He rubbed his ears subconsciously and thought he heard it wrong. After a few seconds, he asked, What did you say? King of Chambord, if I'm getting this correctly, you are refusing and not complying with Bishop Platini's order? Do you even know what you are doing? Of course I know what I'm doing. However, Mr. Xianxia, I'm afraid that you have no clue about what you are doing. Faye's voice turned cold, and his stare was as sharp as a knife. It was clear that he was on the verge of venting out his anger. Angela was the king's reverse scale, and Xianxia's virtuous appearance but shameless intent enraged the king even more. Xianxia was stunned again. This was the first time that he has been stunned multiple times in a row since he became the bishop of the Red Sand Shrine. Then, this white-haired priest understood the current situation, and Faye's reaction instantly enraged him as well. Arrogance. You are only a little king of a tiny kingdom. You did pick up some momentum, but don't think that the little Chambord kingdom can rival with the Holy Church. In my eyes, your little kingdom, as well as your strength, is nothing. You are ignorant. I can easily wipe out everything you have with my pinky finger. Xianxia looked prestigious and kind with his white hair, but he appeared terrifying in anger since his face was all twisted. Huh? We only exchanged a few words, but you are already this mad? Ha 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 ha. Too bad. If someone else were in my position, your threats might have worked. However, you are nothing in my eyes. You are no more than an old lapdog of Platini. The angrier Xianxia was, the more ruthless Faye got. The king of Chambord shook his head and laughed. I'm sure people can see that you are only this pressing because Platini is behind you. What Faye said was up front, like ripping a bandage off a wound. You. Great. This is great. Under everyone's watch, you dare to reject the order of the bishop of the Northern Regional Church. This is my first time seeing someone dare to do this, and it seems like another evil ent.I.Tai has appeared on the continent. I hope that when we get to the headquarters of the execution department of the Northern Regional Church, you can still be this tough in front of chilling interrogation instruments. Xianxia was so mad that he almost spat out blood. He opened his mouth and deemed Fei evil right up front with murderous spirit enveloping him. Evil? Ha 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 ha. I'm afraid that an old lapdog like you doesn't have that level of authority. Ha ha ha. Your level is too low and you know nothing. You think you are smart, but you were used as a stick by others. The Red Sand Shrine is one of the most prominent shrines in the northern region, but it is a pity that you are leading it now. Since you are a soft person without BLLS, the Red Sand Shrine is now pretty much a subordinate to the Xianxia Shrine. This is tragic. If you can live until later, you will know that even Platini won't have the ability to say what you said in front of me. You! Xianxia was so mad that his face turned from red to white. However, the king didn't give him the opportunity to say more. Alright, more argument is meaningless. Mr. Xianxia, you created the Dragon Hunt Alliance, and even tried to use people like Melberg to be the Suicide Squad. All of this is for weakening Chambord and forcing me to use my trump cards. Now, you achieved your goal and the climax is about to arrive, right? Why don't you ask the masters you invited to show themselves? Let's use the most basic yet effective way to put an end to all this. After saying that, Fei took a step forward with a stern expression on his face, and it looked like he wasn't going to say anything more. With an angry expression, it seemed like Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand also didn't want to say anything. In the next moment, Xianxia suddenly punched at the sky without unleashing any power, but a silver light beam which had a diameter of 0.5 meter shot into the sky from his fist. Boom! Crack! It collided with the blue magic energy sphere, and a series of crackling noises sounded as if a gelatine jar was smashed. People looked up and were all stunned. The forbidden spell-level defensive magic array, water screen sky glare, instantly shattered. After getting punched, many cracks appeared like the shell of a broken egg, and it slowly disappeared. This level of power. This was a real Sunsilus Lord. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand instantly showcased his God-like strength, and it was far beyond the level of peak Moonsilus. He could easily alter the laws of nature. Under the power of laws of nature, the forbidden spell-level defensive magic array would break like a piece of paper in front of a sharp knife, and it couldn't maintain its form anymore. A real Sunsilus Lord was of supreme status. Xianxia could easily turn around the current losing situation of the Dragon Hunt Alliance. No wonder Xianxia was the bishop of the Red Sand Shrine, one of the 5 most prominent shrines in the Northern Regional Church. The strength that he demonstrated matched his status and fame. His God-like aura made people feel desperate and weak. All the guests on the square felt like they couldn't fight against him. However, to their surprise, this wasn't Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand's trump card. As soon as the forbidden spell-level defensive array formation, water screen sky glare, was shattered, 2 more figures appeared in the sky in silence. They were both wearing black church robes, and they just stood there without any energy fluctuations around them. However, that was more than enough for all other people to feel suffocated. They felt like their eyes met 2 terrifying black holes, and their souls were being sucked into it along with the SPC around them. This? 2 more Sunsilus Lords? Although these 2 people didn't show their strength and open their mouths, all the masters on the square could clearly tell that they were Sunsilus Lords who could rival against Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand. These 2 people in black church robes gave them a mystic sensation. King of Chambord, you are probably surprised. Mr. Platini already foresaw this. He knew that you might refuse to listen to his order. Therefore, he already sent the left deacon and right deacon of the Xianxia Shrine here with me. Mr. Dior and Mr. Lemors are going to take the Saintess back tonight. I was trying to be kind and give you an opportunity, but I didn't expect you, King of Chambord, to be such an evil person who dares to go against the will of the Geodis. It looks like the entire Chambord kingdom couldn't be any better. Since you set your mind on resisting, then I along with these 2 elders will wipe out Chambord and cleanse the evil for the Geodis. As Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand said that, his body slowly raised into the sky and stood shoulder to shoulder with the other 2 Sunsilus Lords. His voice sounded like a loud bell, and the sound waves made the people's heads dizzy. Huge change. This was a huge change that people didn't expect. Who could have guessed that the wedding of a little king could attract 3 Xianxia lords, whom most people only heard of in legends? Since they showed themselves in this little remote city, it was clear that the king of Chambord, as well as the Chambord kingdom, were both done for. No one believed that the Chambord kingdom had Xianxia lords to rival with these powerful enemies. Ha 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 ha! King of Chambord, you are dead. Dead, I tell you. Prince Simon of the Ardazadi Empire relaxed and laughed out loud. His heart that was in his throat finally dropped down. That is right. Let's see how you can turn this situation around. Ha ha ha. The Chambord kingdom will be wiped out tonight. Prince Sark of the Maze Empire also laughed recklessly. They finally didn't need to worry about suffering the revenge of the king of Chambord for what they did tonight. The current situation was a dead end for Chambord. The appearance of the 3 Xianxia lords had already determined the outcome. That is right. Guys, don't worry. Let's all move and kill every Chambordian. Otherwise, we will face retaliation in the future. A Moonsilas elite who had his face veiled up in black cloth reminded the masters around him. In order not to be recognized by others, most of the Moonsilas elite of the Dragon Hunt Alliance covered their faces to hide their ties. However, the unique aura of each master couldn't be hidden from each other. The power the Chambord kingdom showcased tonight shocked all of them, and it made them want to wipe out Chambord once for all. Since they already joined the Dragon Hunt Alliance, they were going to kill every Chambordian, and it didn't matter if they were infants or elderlies. They had to wipe out all potential threats. With 3 Xianxia lords who could easily tie down the king of Chambord and Queen Elena, the Dragon Hunt Alliance would have a clear numbers advantage. There were way more Moonsilas elites on the side of the Alliance, and they could easily kill all the citizens of Chambord. King of Chambord, stop resisting. If you surrender right now, I can promise you that the innocent Chambordians won't be killed. The Chambord kingdom would get to continue with its regular life. Bishop Xianxia of Redsand stated with power as he looked down on Faye. Right now, the former looked majestic and ennobly. The other 2 elders from the Xianxia shrine didn't say anything. They just released their auras and enveloped the entire Chambord kingdom, suppressing all the masters on Faye's side. The collapse of Chambord was pretty much set on stone. In front of absolute power, this was going to be a blody saker. However, King Alexander of Chambord, who should be devastated at this crushing moment, didn't look scared. Instead, he smiled lightheartedly. The smile was so bright and heartfelt that all guests thought he lost his mind under pressure. What are you smiling about? Die! Bishop Xianxia of Redsand was very annoyed by Faye's smile. He sensed an ominous feeling from it. Angered, he struck down with his palm, and a silver light beam crashed down at Faye as if it was a thick bolt of lightning. The power it contained was beyond destructive. Boom! It is hard to tell who would live and who would die. Faye lightly raised his arm and punched at the sky. A beam of golden light dashed out of his fist, and it instantly collided with that silver light beam. Boom! The loud and terrifying sound wave expanded outward and shocked heaven and earth. What was strange was that the king of Chambord didn't get burned into ashes by Bishop Xianxia of Redsand. On the contrary, the golden light beam instantly destroyed that silver light beam. After that, the residual golden energy shot upward without stopping. Xianxia was stunned. The golden light beam that was coming at him brought along a cold, death-like sensation. At that critical moment, he could only dodge. It was a messy and abrupt teleportation. Whoosh! The golden light beam barely missed as Xianxia's body merged into the SPC around him. Under the nightly sky, that terrifying power turned a part of Bishop Xianxia's black sleeve into ashes. You! Bishop Xianxia of Redsand was terrified and angry as his back was now covered in sweat. He shouted as he couldn't believe what was going on. You advanced into Sunzas? How old are you? How did you do it? How is this possible? This is impossible. You? How? Only Xianxia lords could battle against Xianxia lords. It was a given fact. The king of Chambord lightly punched out, but it instantly destroyed Bishop Xianxia's strike and even harmed Ladder a little. This was enough to prove that he was at least a Sun CLA.S.S Lord and not a peak full moon elite that people had estimated. What? Are you surprised? Faye slowly flew into the sky as well. Right now, all the Moon's elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance were stunned. They looked at Faye, who was in the sky, and regretted their decisions. If they could decide all over again, they would rather go to one of the 10 forbidden locations on the Azeroth continent instead of coming to Chambord City to partake P68 in this operation that they once thought was a piece of cake. The king of Chambord completely overturned the world's understanding of geniuses and power. How can a young man who is about 20 years old become a Sun CLS Lord? People thought. Could he be the reincarnation of a god? However, the good thing is that we have 3 Sun CLS Lords on our side, and the situation isn't that bad yet. As long as these 3 Sun CLS Lords of the Holy Church can kill the king of Chambord together, tonight's winner is still going to be the Dragon Hunt Alliance. I didn't expect this at all. I sure didn't expect this. You are an insane genius. This is insane. How could an unparalleled genius like you be born into the Zenith Empire? Even the famous Emperor Yadatas.Sin of Zenith couldn't be compared to you. This is too bad. If you can work for the Holy Church, it would be great. The GODS made a mistake and turned you into an evil person with absurd thoughts. It sure is a pity that you have such a talent for cultivation but stand against justice and virtue. After the huge shock, Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand shook his head and sighed. The other 2 elders of the Xianxia shrine who were silent also opened their eyes in shock, and it seemed like they couldn't understand how this was possible. They were no longer as relaxed, and they lightly unleashed their power and raised their guards. After all, a Sun CLS Lord was enough to threaten them. Really? There are more things that you can't imagine. Faye sneered. At this moment, he no longer tried to hide his strength. He released the power of HLL mode level 5 Barbarian, and clouds of golden energy flowed out of his body and slowly moved around as if it was made from glue. As this energy slowly expanded outward, the absolute physical strength turned the air in the area dense, like a swamp. This aura was unique to Sun CLS Lords. Now, no one doubted the real strength of Faye. It was evident. Ha 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 ha. Although you are a Sun CLA.S.S Lord, it is impossible for you to fight with 3 Sun CLA.S.S Lords at once. He. Unless you could turn yourself into 3 or summon 2 more Sun CLS Lords. You are losing tonight's battle for sure. After the momentary shock, Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand quickly recovered. That is right. We have 3 Sun CLS Lords on our side, and we still have the absolute advantage. Even if the king of Chambord is now a Sun CLS Lord, which is shocking, he is still outnumbered. He is losing for sure, he thought to himself. It seemed like the situation is under complete control of the Holy Church. Huh? 1 versus 3. Who said that? Ha ha ha, since you asked for it so sincerely, I will be kind and satisfy your request. I will summon 2 more Sun CLA.S.S Lords. Okay? Just as you wish. As soon as Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand finished speaking, Faye smiled again. That smile full of mockery made Xianxia feel very uncomfortable. Bam! The king snapped his finger, and a dash of golden flames shot into the sky like a firework and painted the image of a golden arrow in the air. It was very flashy in the dark sky, and everyone's attention was caught by it. Ha 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 ha! 1 cloud-piercing arrow. Reinforcements are on the way. The king laughed and thought, I finally got the opportunity to say this phrase. In the next moment, 2 dashes of flames, 1 black, 1 white, shot out from the direction of the 5-sword sky mountain. They appeared on the square in a flash, and their speed was unbelievable. After the 2 flames disappeared, 2 figures appeared by Faye's side. One of them was a mid-aged man who looked like he was in his 30s. He had big eyes and thick brows, and he was wearing a black robe with a black wine gourd on his black belt. He sure loved black since everything on him was that color. He wasn't too muscular, and he had a bright smile on his face, making people wanting to like him instinctually. The other man was wearing a white robe, and his long blonde hair was fluttering in the wind. His facial features were sharp, and he was quite handsome. He looked like he was about 40 to 50 years old, but the wisdom hidden in his eyes was far more profound and didn't fit his apparent age. Different from the other man, it seemed like this man loved white. Even his golden belt was made from white gold. One black and one white, one left and one right. These two people stood beside Fei as if they were his guards. Suddenly, Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand and the two elders of the Xianxia shrine were stunned, and they looked angry and shocked. With their abilities, they could tell that these two people who suddenly appeared from the back mountains of Chambord were also Sun Ciel lords. In addition, this mid-aged man in white and golden wasn't a stranger to people like Xianxia. In fact, he was one of their acquaintances. "Oh, I didn't expect this. Javier, you actually appeared here. Therefore, I guess the rumor is true. Is the king of Chambord really the God's favorite child of the Black Cloth Shrine? Is he now the bishop of your shrine?" Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand frowned, and he had an ominous feeling about everything since the situation was headed toward a direction that he didn't foresee. This handsome mid-aged man was one of the most powerful elders at the Black Cloth Shrine, Javier Batistuta. "Ha ha ha ha. Xianxia, I didn't expect that we would meet here again. You were right. King Alexander His Majesty is now the bishop of our Black Cloth Shrine. How dare you slander him? Bishop Alexander is a God's favorite child, and is blessed by the Gods. How can you say that he is evil? He. Are you breaching the code of God? Or are you trying to tilt the scale of justice?" Batistuta shouted and didn't hesitate to accuse Xianxia of wrongdoings. His aura was as sharp as a blade, and others had a hard time staring at him. "Since I didn't know about that, what I said doesn't count. I will take back what I said." Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand giggled and neutralized Batistuta's accusations. After a short pause, he asked, "However, taking Saintess Angela back to the headquarters of the Northern Regional Church is the order from Bishop Platini. As a member of the Northern Regional Church, Black Cloth Shrine also must follow His Highness' command. Do you want to go against His Highness' command and help Chambord battle with the Holy Church? Are you betraying the Holy Church?" Since these two knew each other well and didn't like each other, they threw punches at each other with words. Even if Bishop Platini gave that order, so what? Queen Angela had already become the saintess of our Black Cloth Shrine. As the bishop of the Northern Regional Church, he doesn't have the power of robbing other shrine saintesses, right? That is the first rule in the Code of God. Batistuta didn't buy Xianxia's reasoning, and he countered with his own. "What? You?" Xianxia was shocked by what he heard. Suddenly, he realized why the king of Chambord didn't look angry or surprised when he announced why he was here. So, he is already prepared, and he is waiting for me to. Xianxia thought. If Angela was already the saintess of the Black Cloth Shrine, then everything was just as what Batistuta had said. Even Bishop Platini of the Northern Regional Church didn't have the power to make Angela into the saintess of the Xianxia Shrine. This was strictly forbidden in the rules of the Holy Church. Humph! The king of Chambord has to be approved by the Senate of the Northern Regional Church, as well as Pope Bladder, who is on the Walu Mountain. Before that is done, everything is undetermined. Therefore, Angela isn't the saintess of the Black Cloth Shrine yet. Our Xianxia Shrine still has an opportunity. Seeing Xianxia falling into desperation, one of the elders of the Xianxia Shrine, Lemors, suddenly spoke. What Lemors said instantly brought hope to Xianxia, and his eyes lit up. "That is right. Ha 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 ha. Nothing is settled now. We still have an opportunity." Xianxia laughed out loud. "You still have an opportunity, and so do we, the Black Cloth Shrine. We can fight fairly for it. Under this situation, according to the Code of Geodius, it is up to Queen Angela to decide which shrine she wants to join. Even Platini can't force Her Highness to join the Xianxia Shrine," Batistuta said. However, he sighed secretly and thought, "Lemors sure is old and cunning. He saw through the loophole of our plan instantly. But at least we have a proper reason to resist Platini's order, and it isn't the worst-case scenario yet." Humph! She is only a young girl. What does she know? She can't decide on anything. We aren't going to play this game. This important decision has to be made by elders like us, and that is the best for her future. The other elder of the Xianxia shrine, Dior, said coldly. The unreasonableness of these people made Fei infuriated, and he frowned as his murderous spirit boiled. Too much talking. After all, we must solve this issue with fists. Queen Angela will go with the group that has the strongest fist. Let's do it! The mid-aged man in black who was beside Fei stated abruptly. Fei smiled and thought, "It seems like undead mage Hazelbank sure knows me the best." This man in black was undead mage Hazelbank. After this period of recovery, his strength had skyrocketed. Even though he wasn't back at his peak state, he could easily cover up his undead aura. In addition, after comprehending the basic geodaily runes, the mad scientists Kane and Akira leveled up the geo-defooling badges. As long as Hazelbank didn't use his sun anomaly, no one would be able to identify him through his energy attribute. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand frowned. After observing Hazelbank carefully, he asked politely, "You are?" "I'm not famous, and I'm just a subordinate of King Alexander His Majesty," the undead mage said calmly. This answer shocked the three people on the side of Northern Regional Church. They thought that this Sunsealatus Lord in Black was a master who was invited here by the King of Shambord. After all, every Sunsealatus Lord was proud and dignified. It was very rare for them to admit that they were someone else's subordinate. However, this man in black admitted it right away. This is shocking. How powerful is the Shambord Kingdom? They thought. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand wasn't too sure of everything now. He prepared a lot for tonight, and he felt like he didn't underestimate his opponent. After all, even when a lion was hunting a rabbit, it would use its full strength. However, he wasn't able to be in control of the situation in the end. His confidence was shaking. "Since you are a nobody, get away from here. How dare you get involved in the internal affairs of the Holy Church? Do you want to die?" Elder Lemors of Xianxia threatened with a chilly tone. "Hee, old dog. Don't use that outdated threat of yours. Try me, and let me see how powerful you really are." How proud was the undead mage. When he was younger, he would kill tens of thousands of people if they offended him. In the past, numerous masters of the Holy Church died in his hand. Except for Fei, he wouldn't show his friendly side to anyone else. A dash of black mist shot out of the undead mage's sleeves and turned into tens of thousands of sharp swords, targeting Elder Lemors of Xianxia. Under the control of Hazelbank and the effect of the upgraded geo-defooling badge, even though this energy was chilly and gloomy, it was very different from undead energy and death energy. Therefore, even though these three masters of the Holy Church practiced holy power for many years, they couldn't identify the attribute of this black mist. Lemors didn't dare to be overconfident. Since his opponent was also a Sunsealatus Lord, any misstep would place him in a dangerous situation. As he reached out his hand and straightened his dried, tree branches like fingers, he pushed outward. A thick silver wall made from holy power instantly appeared in front of him, and it blocked the tens of thousands of black swords 5 meters away from him. Since the two of them had insane control over their energies, not a single bit of residual energy spilled into the area, so the guests on the square weren't affected at all. As their bodies flashed, black energy flames and white energy flames appeared and entangled with each other. The two of them used their full strength after a few test attacks, and their power gradually couldn't be controlled that well anymore. Residual energy started to appear and spill into the area. Then, they both shouted and dashed into the high sky, disappearing from people's sights. All that people could see were the bright energy flames that were spilling into the area. The Sunsealatus Lords were way too powerful. Even the residual power was enough to destroy mountains, evaporate lakes, tear land, and crush cities. Since they could do a lot of damage to the continent, most Sunsealatus Lords would decide to battle it out in the high sky. Ha ha ha! Since they already started the battle, we shouldn't just hang around and watch. Let's fight as well. Bodistuda laughed and targeted the other Xianxia elder, Dior. Since this was already prearranged, he waved his hand, and the silver holy light that came out of his hand turned into a huge judgment sword. As he struck it down at Dior, it felt like the sky was even torn apart. He didn't hold back at all. Great! I always wanted to fight you. Today, I will let you know that the fall of the Blackcloth Shrine is unavoidable. Doesn't matter what kind of fight you guys put up, it will be useless. Dior laughed chillingly. Without holding back, he also unleashed his mighty holy power, and it seemed like he could easily destroy the world if he wanted to. His holy power condensed into a huge circular silver shield that was about 100 meters in diameter with a lot of runes on it, blocking that judgment sword easily. After a few strikes, the two of them also dashed into the high sky to continue their battle. The death battles between Xianxia's lords happened, and it couldn't be avoided. Right now, all the people on the ground felt like their mouths were dry, and their hearts were racing. They couldn't say a word and talk to each other. They felt like 6 burning suns suddenly appeared in the sky, and even the slight auras that these Xianxia's lords emitted suffocated them. As they shivered, they didn't even dare to breathe heavily. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand looked at Faye again, and the expression on his face was complicated. This Xianxia's lord, who was one of the most influential people at the Northern Regional Church, had various emotions on his mind. He planned this operation diligently and thought that the Chambord Kingdom would be crushed by more than 20 Moonseal's elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance. Even though he came with these 2 elders of the Xianxia Shrine, he didn't think that they needed to come out and pressure Chambord. However, the situation got out of hand quickly. Now with him and those 2 elders, they couldn't even guarantee success. Right now, everything was 50-50. I sure have underestimated you. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand looked at Faye with a serious expression on his face. As strands of silver holy power started to spread outward, he continued, however, even if you are a Xianxia's lord and are capable of great strength, Chambord couldn't escape from its doom. As long as I occupy your time and energy, the battles below Xianxia's is still heavily favored toward us. If I give the command, the masters of the Dragon Hunt Alliance will be able to destroy your kingdom within 15 minutes. He was trying to attack Faye's mind with words. Since he could sense that Faye was strong, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. He knew that Faye cared a lot about his kingdom, so he wanted to use it to pressure the king. As long as he could provoke Faye successfully and make the king a little distracted during battle, he would have a tremendous upper hand. This minor change could drastically alter the outcome of the fight. After all Xianxia's elites were insanely powerful, and they could capitalize on the mistake of their opponents very well. Ha ha ha! Faye laughed. He had been through way more battles compared to Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand, who had high status and rarely challenged himself. Therefore, it was easy for him to read through Xianxia's mind. As he laughed in disdain, he added, "What a joke! The Dragon Hunt Alliance is a joke. All of you are just cowards. Tonight, I will let you know how powerful Chambord is." After Faye said that, he stopped laughing and shouted, "Guys, show yourselves!" Before he could finish, many blue portals appeared on the square as buzzing noises sounded. As lights flashed by, many flower-like teleportation arrays opened, and powerful figures walked out of them and stood beside the warriors of Chambord. 1, 2, 3, 4. These people were all Moonseal's elites. The first 2 people who arrived were Priest Jesse as well as Holy Knight Alan. Then 3 more people appeared by them. They were elderly priests who were from the Blackcloth Shrine, and they were the last bit of power the shrine had. On the other side, 5 elderly warriors walked out of a portal. Behind them there were 3 mid-aged warriors. The elderly warriors were the ones who were saved by Faye during his trip to the mythical palace. Since they were very thankful toward Faye, they came with the masters in their families to congratulate the king on his wedding. Even though they were facing powerful enemies, they still decided to stand with Chambord. Of course, the 3 mid-aged warriors were their descendants who were now also at Moonseal. The military leader of Rogue Encampment also walked out of a portal in silence. Xianxia was wearing her usual brown cape, and she had an intense murderous spirit. She was one of the most trustworthy masters from Diablo World, and she was powerful. When Chambord needed her the most, she temporarily dropped her duties at the letter office and returned. In the guest areas, Prince Girano of Saint-Germain and Prince Gurkov of Bordeaux both stood up and walked to the side of Chambord with masters from their empires. Also, the masters from the other affiliated kingdom of Zenit such as Reyes, Cindy, Canort, and Hork appeared on the square. Even though they weren't MoonCLA.S.S elites, they were still advanced star-level masters. They could fend off the weaker members of the Dragon Hunt Alliance and protect the powerless citizens of Chambord. Boom! 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 For a moment, loud explosions sounded on the square. After vicious battles, Check, Pierce, and Robin, who were inside, Water Jody battle seals, finally defeated and killed their corresponding opponents, getting victories for Chambord. As the blue light of the Water Jody battle seals disappeared, their figures were visible to others once again. Even though they were all severely injured, they still had high spirits. They didn't look tired, and their ferocity wasn't inferior to Drogba's. With the heads of their opponents, they walked back and stood beside their comrades. Standing on the high wedding platform that had 9 levels and 36 steps, the set items of the Mavina's battle hymn appeared on Elena after lights flashed by. Mavina's embrace Kraken made her look firm and tough, and Mavina's caster Grand Matron bow gave chills to the people around her. The power in her aura increased by a lot, and her strength was close to the Sun CLA.S realm. Her energy flames were so bright that it looked like she was the center of the formation of Chambord. As the nightly wind blew by, her red hair fluttered in the air, and Elena, who was now in armor, looked like a Valkyrie. Elena suddenly used the power of her second bloodline, Paladin. As she waved her hand, dashes of golden energy flew into the injured warriors of Chambord such as Drogba and Czech, and their injuries quickly recovered at a visible speed. In addition, their stamina and vitality also went back to the peak. In just a few seconds, the strength that Chambord showcased increased by many folds. Now, there were also more than 20 MoonCLA.S.S elites on the side of Chambord. Amongst them, Valkyrie Elena was almost at Sun CLA. She was practically invincible in front of MoonCLA.S elites. This wasn't even the end of it. The quiet and ordinary stone fortresses around the square suddenly transformed. After golden runes appeared on them, terrifying Dragon Slayer crossbows were pushed to the openings, and the arrows that were loaded in them were pointed at the MoonCLA elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance. These chilling, huge arrows were strengthened by the mad scientists in their laboratory. After receiving the upgrade, these magic crossbows and arrows were lethal enough to threaten MoonCLA's elites. If ordinary MoonCLA's elites were hit by these arrows, they couldn't bear the consequences. The situation was turned around instantly. Chambord, which was at a numbers disadvantage, was now in complete control. Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand couldn't believe what he was seeing. How can Chambord have so many MoonCLA's elites on its side? Amen. How dare empires like Street Germain and Bordeaux stand with Chambord and fight against the Holy Church? Aren't they afraid of retaliation from the Xianxia shrine? He thought anxiously. Now with Chambord at an advantage, the king of Chambord will be able to battle with me without having to worry about anything. What? You are surprised? I told you that there are many things that you couldn't even imagine. Open your eyes and enjoy the show. Faye stared at Xianxia intensely as he continued to mock. Angela, who was standing on the high wedding platform in her long white dress, suddenly smiled at Faye. Then, she clasped her hands in front of her chest and murmured. It looked like she was praying very sincerely and summoning something. Suddenly, waves of unique and invisible energies spread out into the area with Angela in the center, and only Faye could sense it. In the next moment, something unimaginable happened. Series of loud and terrifying roars sounded from the back mountains of Chambord, and people felt like the ground was shaking and the sky was moving. The shocking sound waves rushed to the square, and it sounded like rare, vicious beasts were about to appear. The pupils of Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand contracted instantly. He saw more than 20 huge and dark shadows suddenly appearing in the sky, and they were flying toward Chambord City. They are a bunch of supreme king-level demon beasts that are equivalent to MoonCLA.S.S elites in terms of combat abilities. Xianxia was stunned as he finally recognized what those dark, mountain-like shadows were. Flying in the front, the black beast that was more than 100 meters long looked shiny, and it seemed like lights were flashing on its fur continuously. Its head looked like a dog's, but it had a massive pair of black wings, a giant body, and two sharp and vicious-looking horns on its forehead. As it spat out orange flames from time to time, it was hard to associate this terrifying creature with a dog. Behind this mysterious and strange black beast, there were three huge dragon-like beasts. As they flew toward Chambord City, they roared in excitement and seemed like hooligans who wanted to engage in fights. One of them was red like fire, one of them was blue like ice, and the last one looked like it was cast from bronze. As they emitted terrifying auras that were unique to dragons, they followed that strange black beast tightly, as if they were its guards. Behind these three dragon-like demon beasts, there were 15 to 16 demon beasts of all kinds. There was an ape that had 6 arms, a python that had 3 heads, an eagle that had a wingspan of more than 100 meters, and an eye-like demon beast that looked like a meatball. These demon beasts were all more than 100 meters tall or long, and they looked like flying mountains. Their intense auras, as well as their abilities to fly, told everyone that they were supreme king-level demon beasts, and they were as powerful as Moonsil as elites. Demon beasts on this level were already as smart and intelligent as humans, and they had powerful innate abilities and sharper battle instincts. In addition, their bodies were much more robust than human bodies, so their combat abilities were far more powerful than ordinary Moonsil.s elites. What shocked Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand the most was that these demon beasts flew toward Chambord in a formation. These powerful demon beasts should be hostile toward each other since they had strong senses of territory, but they followed that strange black beast and the 3 dragon-like demon beasts as if they were soldiers in a troop. These demon beasts soon covered up more than half of the sky with their monetization bodies, and their terrifying auras made the weaker people have a hard time breathing. It was clear to everyone that these demon beasts resided in the back mountains of Chambord, and people couldn't help but wonder, why? Are these demon beasts here? Are they here to rob Chambord when it is chaotic? Just as everyone was confused, Queen Angela of Chambord, who looked weak and powerless, called with her beautiful voice as she stood on the high wedding platform. What happened next stunned everyone. The strange black beast that was flying at the very front suddenly roared angrily, and all the demon beasts following it shouted in unison and paused in midair. Then that black beast dashed down at the square quickly, as if it were a bolt of lightning as a series of gasps sounded. That huge black beast suddenly slowed down and landed quietly beside the high platform. Suddenly, it turned gentle and tamed like a cute kitten, and it sat down on the square on its all fours. Now, people saw that there was a mystic silver throne situated on this black beast's back. On one armrest of the throne, there was a chubby treasure-seeking beast. Its eyes were black and big, its fur was brownish-red, and its fat tail was black and white striped. Anyone who looked at it in its eyes felt like it was really smart, and this animal was jumping and chirping on the throne. It was clear that it knew Queen Angela well, and it seemed like it was welcoming her to sit on the throne. Angela lightly pulled up her long white dress to make sure that the bottom of the dress was making the least amount of contact with the floor, and she stepped onto the back of this gigantic black beast, walked to the mystic throne, and sat on it slowly. As soon as her hands touched the armrests, a layer of pure and saint energy appeared and formed a circular sphere around her, completely enveloping and protecting this gorgeous and pure girl along with the throne. Roar! In the next moment, this gigantic black beast opened its mouth and shouted, and the sound wave expanded outward and blew dust and small rocks into the air as if there were a tornado. Then, as it fluttered its wings, this black beast dashed into the sky with Queen Angela on its back. After it got back to its peers, the other supreme king-level demon beasts roared in excitement and flew around Angela rapidly as if they met their lord. This scene took everyone by surprise. It was like a miracle. People felt like they couldn't even process this information. It was clear that Queen Angela was able to command supreme king-level demon beasts. It was unimaginable. Anyone who had basic knowledge about demon beasts knew that they were difficult to be tamed by humans on the Azeroth continent. Unless they were raised by humans when they were born, or they were captured and brainwashed by secret techniques, it was almost impossible to get them. Obtaining one demon beast was hard, let alone taming more than a dozen Supreme King-level demon beasts. What was happening right now flipped the concrete knowledge about demon beasts in many people's minds. Blackie, guys, let's protect Chambord together. Sitting on the mystic throne located on Blackie's back, Angela looked like a geodess who wasn't from this world. Her white dress emphasized her bright aura and her otherworldly beauty. When she was around the demon beasts, she smiled and spoke in a soft tone that made it sound like she was speaking to old friends. It was clear that the demon beasts could understand the words of Angela. As they roared in the sky, violent and disruptive energies appeared and dispersed into the air. As Blackie flew in the air, 4 to 5 most powerful demon beasts surrounded it and tried to protect Angela in the center. Then the 3 dragons, Thug, Chick, and Hooligan, dashed down with the rest of the Supreme King-level demon beasts. They were targeting the masters of the Dragon Hunt Alliance, who were all stunned on the square, and they spat out fire, ice, poison, and lightning energies as they attacked these enemies of Chambord. The scene looked like a formation of huge bomber aircraft was bombing the ground mercilessly. Ah! A low-tier New Moon elite who had his face veiled up wasn't able to dodge in time, and he was turned into a puddle of blood by the fire energies a few demon beasts spat. Damn it! Why are these bastards listening to the Queen of Chambord? Ah! What is happening? My arm! Damn it! Let's attack and kill these demon beasts first. Damn it! Why are these 2 queens this powerful? One of them is close to Xianxia, and the other could command demon beasts. This is too much. From now on, Chambord is going to be the most powerful force within 500,000 kilometers of zenith. Counterattack. Fight back. If you want to live, fighting back is the only option. On the square, the Moonsielatas elites of the Dragon Hunt Alliance were shocked and scared. They screamed at each other and were in a complete mess. However, the demon beasts in the air were spitting powerful energies at them, and they had to defend themselves somehow. When some of them weren't careful, several demon beasts charged down at the same time and pulled them into the air. After a few seconds of tearing and biting, they were turned into pieces, and their flesh, organs, and bones fell from the sky. The scene was really horrific. Sitting on the throne of chaos, Angela looked down and saw everything, and she looked a little troubled. However, she didn't say anything to stop it in the end. What happened tonight angered Angela, who was usually peaceful and calm. It was really rare for her to get angry. Therefore, she commanded the demon beasts and killed the cruel enemies mercilessly. Ha 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 ha! Let's go! None of these bastards can get away alive. Drogba laughed as he swung the huge shield, Holy Collision, and dashed toward the stunned masters of the Dragon Hunt Alliance, like an orange tornado. Die! Anyone who dares to attack Chambord shall pay with their lives. Lampard leaped into the air and turned into a thick bolt of lightning. Even though he moved later than Drogba, he got to the enemies first. As lightning flashed, Prince Simon of Madat Ardazdadi and Prince Sark of Maze, who were the weakest but also the most arrogant, were turned into 2 pieces of charcoal-like statues after the lightning energy went through them. Even streaks of black smoke were coming off them. Kill! These bastards! We treated them with hospitality and respect, but they are just vicious wolves that are greedy and cruel. Let them experience the anger of the Chambordians. People like Pierce, Czech, Oleg, Robin, and Kasia all roared and instantly unleashed their power. There was no need to hide their strength now, so they all summoned the high-level combat weapons that Faye gave them. Their combat abilities skyrocketed, and they dashed into the enemies of the Dragon Hunt Alliance, without mercy like tigers in herds of sheep. Following them, the masters of the Blackcloth Shrine and the Moonsielatas elites of the elderly warriors' families all charged forward as well. With the advantage, the people who were on the side of Chambord felt confident, and their morale was high. Therefore, they were able to crush their enemies easily. At the same time, Torres and Akinfeev, who were both very handsome, already unleashed their warrior energies. As warrior energy flames enveloped them, they loaded their bows and shot out lethal magic arrows. Like the dark storm clouds, arrows that looked like raindrops were shot from them. Both these handsome blonde young men were archery masters. Even if they shot out arrows with their eyes closed, they could still hit their targets accurately. Therefore, the blood of the enemies was spilled, and no one was showing mercy. A bloody and chaotic battle finally took place. The strength of one party was growing while the power of the other party continued to decline. Right now, the power of Chambord was far beyond the Dragon Hunt Alliance. With the reinforcement of the demon beasts in the sky, there were more than double the Moonsiele elites on the side of Chambord compared with the invaders. The huge change terrified the masters of the Dragon Hunt Alliance, and the death of their peers dropped their morale. They weren't able to give their all during battles, and some of them even turned around and tried to flee. In the sky, Bishop Xianxia of Red Sand couldn't believe his eyes, and his face twitched non-stop. At this moment, he still wasn't willing to accept what he was seeing. "What do you think, Mr. Xianxia? Do you still think that my Chambord is a weak bug that could be stomped by you at will?" Fei wasn't trying to act ennobli at all, and he wasn't going to let Xianxia go that easy. He was going to beat Xianxia up viciously with words first and really shame this arrogant bishop of the Red Sand Shrine. These supreme king-level demon beasts were all native residents in the back mountains of Chambord. They each occupied territory at the vast and limitless mountains and forests behind Chambord, and they were the king of their land. They didn't attack each other and just safeguarded their territories, and that had been going on for numerous years. However, after Blackie advanced in realms, it led the three young dragons and wandered around the edges of the back mountains. They started to like fighting, and they went to challenge the supreme king-level demon beasts that had owned large territories. In the beginning, they won most of the fights and lost only a few, and they gradually were able to achieve a win rate of 100%. Almost all the supreme king-level demon beasts within 500 kilometers of Chambord were defeated and terrified by these four outsiders. After more than half a month, these supreme king-level demon beasts were beaten again and again, and they had to surrender to Blackie and the three dragons, accepting them as the real rulers of the wilderness within 500 kilometers of Chambord. All of this was unknown to Fei before. Fei ran into them when these four beasts were flying in the forests and back mountains with their subordinates a few days ago, and he learned about all this. At that time, the king was at a loss for words and didn't know if he should laugh or cry. However, since he saw that the supreme king-level demon beasts were all trained by Blackie and the three dragons and were organized like a military troop, he suddenly had the idea of constructing a legion of supreme king-level demon beasts. There were many supreme king-level demon beasts at the back mountains of Chambord, and there were a lot of secrets. If Chambord could really form a demon beast legion, the kingdom would be almost invincible in the region. However, Blackie and the three dragons weren't strong enough, and getting more than 20 supreme king-level demon beasts under them was their limit. Afterward, Fei suddenly thought about Angela's innate ability to communicate with beasts and animals, and he realized the power of it. Therefore, he sneaked Angela out of Chambord behind his future father-in-law's back and tried to see if her innate ability would work. The result of the test surprised Fei. He didn't expect these vicious and powerful demon beasts to act like cute kittens in front of Angela, and they behaved really tamed. What was interesting was that the higher the level of demon beasts, the more intelligent they were, and more obedient and tamed they were in front of Angela. It felt like they were the loyal subjects of Angela, their lord. With the secret help of Angela, this demon beast legion of Chambord was quickly formed. In just a few days, the legion got well trained, and the supreme king-level demon beasts all listened to Angela, Blackie, and the three dragons. This was the first show of the demon beast legion, and it was shocking. Everyone was at a loss for words.